Call the meeting to order, and I'm Christine Smetter, Chair of the Boards. I call this meeting to order, and we will call the roll. You've already done that, Kate, and you said we have a quorum.
I haven't officially done it. It's further down on the agenda, Madam Chair.
Okay, we will call the roll. When your last name is called, please indicate you are present by stating here. Ms. Nosfish, please call the roll.
Thank you. I wanted to send regrets from Ms. Alexander and Mr. Nair. They could not be here today. They send regrets. Miss Alexandria. Mr. Allen. Can you give a thumbs up or say here during roll call?
I'm here.
Ms. Anglin?
Here.
Mr. Colley?
Here.
Mr. Hancock?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Ms. Price?
Here.
Ms. Reness?
Here.
Ms. Snetter?
Here.
Ms. Stiles?
Here.
Ms. Stokes?
Here.
Mr. Stone?
Here.
And Mr. Zmuda?
Here.
Thank you all for attending. We do have a quorum, Madam Chair.
At this time, I'll ask Ms. Nosfish to review the emergency evacuation procedures. We are not, they're the virtual procedures. So those are the procedures for the virtual meeting.
For the emergency evacuation for the staff members participating from our agency, I would follow the normal procedures to the closest stairwell, down the steps, out the side door, and wait by the back fence for further instruction. I'll just go right into the virtual board meeting. The law allowing for fully virtual meetings during the pandemic places special obligations to ensure we continue to promote meaningful public access and participation. The meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be posted on our website. We ask you keep your video on, but that is not a requirement. It is a requirement for all board members to be able to hear each other's voices. Please mute when you are not speaking. That cuts down on the background noise. The meeting must be suspended for any broadcast interruption until public access is restored. All votes must be recorded in roll call fashion. We will do so alphabetically by last name, so please be ready when your name is called. And that is it. Thank you very much.
Next item is the approval of the agenda. The first order of business is the approval agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Madam Chair, move approval of the agenda as presented.
Second.
Second. The motion has been approved. I mean, the motion, excuse me, is that the agenda has been approved. So Ms. Nosfish, could you call the vote?
Yes. Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Anglin?
Aye.
Mr. Colley?
Aye.
Mr. Hancock?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Ms. Renez?
Aye.
Ms. Snetter?
Aye.
Ms. Stiles?
Aye.
Ms. Stokes?
Aye.
Mr. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Zmuda?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
It is adopted. We'll move on to approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes?
If I can make one correction on the minutes from the March meeting under interior designers, it has Caroline's first name, but not her last name. So if we can add Alexander to that.
Thank you.
A second.
Second.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Mike.
Oh, hi, Mike. Okay, so there's a motion and a second for the March minutes as amended.
As amended. Yes, there is the motion is adopted as amended. Please call the vote, Ms. Nosfish.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Anglin,
Aye.
Mr. Colley,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Price,
Aye.
Ms. Reness.
I was absent, so I can't vote.
Thank you. Ms. Snetter,
Aye.
Ms. Stiles,
Aye.
Ms. Stokes,
Aye.
Mr. Stone,
Aye.
Mr. Zmuda.
Aye.
The motion is adopted as amended. Do we have any public comment today? Individuals requesting to address the board during public comment or to
We-
notify the board?
We had no one notify the board in advance that they wish to address the board today. However, we do have some distinguished guests from CLARB, and I will introduce them when we get down to our CLARB update right after we review our files, Madam Chair.
The next item on the agenda is file review. The board will now take up the cases before it today. Ms. Nussbridge, will you introduce the first case? And we will excuse Mr. Kelly and Mr. Zmuda from the meeting.
Yes, bear with us a second that we put Mr. Kelly and Mr. Zmuda in a breakout room. You don't need to do anything, sirs, and hopefully you'll be in a breakout room together here in a minute. Is Mr. Jabouri back on the call?
I am here, ma'am.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Jabouri. As I said, we are on file number 2020-01577, Kevin Jabouri, and Mr. Jabouri does wish to address the board. And Mr. Jabouri, as we discussed, cannot introduce any new information at this time, and you do have 5 minutes, sir, to address the board.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. Kevin Jabouri with KJ and Associates in Fairfax, Virginia. In regards to the case on front of you, I do not have anything to add. I just reiterate what I provided to the investigative body and the informal fact-finding conference in Richmond that I attended. I just want to emphasize that it is my personal trait to the best of my ability do things appropriately and correctly. My integrity, both personally and business-wise, is very important to me, and that is how I conduct business all the time. As I have already addressed the individuals before, none of the business registration documents starting from 1994 with Fairfax County indicated the requirement to sign up and register with DPOR. That document only indicated the requirement to the State Corporation Commission, which once the entity was incorporated, I notified them immediately. And then when I moved the business from Fairfax County to the city of Fairfax, after changing the registration from the county to the city, I specifically asked the staff if there is anything else I need to do. And the answer was no, you are fine the way you're applying. The only thing I may want to recommend, may be worthy, if you think it may be worthy, is at least communicate with the local jurisdictions to, just like they put in their pamphlet, check see if you need to sign with State Corporation Commission, to add a piece in their pamphlet or requirements to also check with DPOR regarding registering your business. I do apologize for taking your time this morning. The violation was not intentionally committed, and I respect the board's judgment on it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
Is there a motion to approve the violation?
I move that we approve the recommendation.
The Stone has moved to approve the recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Ms. Nussbush, could you please call the vote?
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Anglin?
Aye.
Mr. Colley?
Aye.
Mr. Hancock?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Ms. Reness?
Aye.
Ms. Snetter? Ms. Snetter?
Aye.
Ms. Stiles?
Aye.
Ms. Stokes?
Aye.
Mr. Stone?
Aye.
It is unanimous for the violation. Mr. Jabouri has no priors, and the next thing we're looking at then is the sanction.
Is there a motion to approve the sanction?
I move that we approve the sanction.
The Stone has moved to approve the sanction. Is there a second?
Second.
You seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to note that even though this was an unintentional violation, that the monetary penalty recommended should be in line with those for similar infractions. And so that we would want to keep parity along those lines.
So, Ms. McIntyre, I don't have that list at my disposal right now, but what is there a recommendation that you would make? It's $1,000 fine.
No, sir. Mr. Stone, I don't have a different recommendation. I believe that the $1,000 recommendation would have been arrived by work of the presiding board member and adjudications in combination to identify that this fee would have parity with other similar like violations that we have on record. So I'm confident that this fine is not out of line due to that line of thinking.
Okay.
Ms. Fish, if there's no more discussion, could you please call the vote?
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Allen? I'm sorry, did someone else say something?
No, I said, oh, yes.
I thought I heard somebody before you. I'm sorry, sir. Mr. Allen is affirmative. Ms. Anglin?
Aye.
Mr. Colley?
Aye.
Mr. Hancock?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Ms. Reness?
Aye.
Ms. Snetter?
Aye.
Ms. Stiles?
Aye.
Ms. Stokes?
Aye.
And Mr. Stone?
Aye.
Motion's unanimous, Madam Chair.
The motion is adopted. Well, Mr. Kelly, please bring Mr. Kelly back into the meeting at this time, and Mr. Zmoda will remain excused.
One moment. Hold on, please. Mr. Kelly, make it back.
I don't think so. Don't hear him. I see that he's joined. Mr. Kelly, are you with us?
I am with you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve excuse me, approve the violation of Mr. Yates? Will now take up his findings.
Madam Chair, I think, I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I think that since there are two counts, I think we need to take them separately. Is that not correct, Ms. Nosbish? We can't hear you.
Apologize. Yes, we can take them separately.
Okay, then I will make a motion to approve the recommendation for the first count. If anybody's looking for it, I think it's on page 95 of the agenda.
I second the motion to accept the presiding officer's recommendation.
Seconded. The motion has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Ms. Noswich, could you count the vote, please?
Mr. Allen, Ms. Anglin,
Aye.
Mr. Colley,
I think you said me. Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Ms. Reness,
Aye.
Ms. Snetter,
Aye.
Ms. Stiles,
Aye.
Ms. Stokes,
Aye.
and Mr. Stone.
Aye.
It's unanimous, Madam Chair.
Motion-
Mr. Yates,
Okay, go ahead.
excuse me, Mr. Yates does not have any priors with the board.
The first part of the case, the IFF has been approved. We'll move into the second portion of that. Before we do that, we want a motion, to approve. This motion has been adopted, and we'll go into the second motion. Is there a second? Is there a motion to approve the sanction? Second part of the.
Madam Chair, in order to begin the discussion, I move that we accept the presiding officer's recommendation for count 2.
I second it.
Is there any discussion?
Although I made the motion, I do have some concern that he had not reported his prior convictions to the board for an extended period of time, and so I'd like to hear the opinion of others as how they feel about that.
Yeah, I read that as well, and I thought that the findings, the recommendation was okay because, as was indicated, it did not affect the work that he was doing. So I figured that you could separate the two. Is there any more discussion on this?
Madam Chair, if I may. So what the board is voting on now are sanctions for count 1, and count 1 was the issue that Mr. Yates had with a verbal agreement. And so the sanctions for that are the $2,500 placed on probation for 3 months and 3 classroom hours of board-approved continuing educations pertaining to ethics and proof of completion within 3 months. So that's just for count 1. We haven't looked at count 2 yet.
Well, I apologize.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I made a motion to accept count 2, so I guess I withdraw my motion.
Yeah, I thought we were done with count 1.
You had asked for a motion to approve the sanctions, and that's where we were at.
Okay, right.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the sanctions for count 1.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion on that? If not, Ms. Noswich, could you call the vote, please?
Certainly. Mr. Allen.
Aye.
Ms. Anglin.
If I might have just a moment, please. I'm going back in my electronic agenda I want to be clear, this is very confusing with counts 1 and 2. So
Well-
we are in fact talking about the first one that begins on page. May I
Start
have
on page 91.
Yes, yes. So if we are looking at page 91, the recommendation is, yes, that he be placed on probation for 3 months and required to complete the classroom hours. Yes.
The $2,500 penalty. Yes. ma'am.
Yes, affirmative.
Thank you.
Aye.
Mr. Colley,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Price,
Aye.
Ms. Reness,
Aye.
Ms. Snetter,
Aye.
Ms. Stiles,
Aye.
Ms. Stokes,
Aye.
and Mr. Stone.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous, Madam Chair.
The motion is adopted. Could you, we go to the second count, I guess, before we bring this Smyrna back into the room.
Yes, ma'am.
So, is there a motion to approve the violation? Motion to approve the violation?
I move to accept the presiding officer's recommendation for count 2. That he
A
was in
second?
violation.
Second.
So,
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Ann Stokes.
Stokes, thank you.
Is that, it has been moved and seconded. The motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
So I guess with my motion that we are agreeing that he was in violation of count 2. Is that, and then we do another motion for the consequence for that?
That is correct.
Okay.
If there's no other discussion, Madam Chair, do you want me to take the roll?
Please.
Mr. Allen,
aye.
Ms. Anglin,
Aye.
Mr. Colley,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Price,
Aye.
Ms. Reness,
Aye.
Ms. Snetter,
Aye.
Ms. Stiles,
Aye.
Ms. Stokes,
Aye.
and Mr. Stone.
Aye.
Okay, and again, Mr. Yates had no priors, and so now we move on to the
Sanction?
sanctioning. And this is a little different, I know, than what you're all used to seeing. So in effect, what this is that he was found in violation, but as you see for the sanction, the presiding officer recommended that the board impose no penalty. So it's the same as saying like a violation with no sanction. So yes, he was found in violation. The presiding officer is recommending no sanction. And so that's what's before the board to vote on.
Madam Chair, I move we accept the presiding officer's recommendation of no penalty for this count.
A second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair, while I understand there's no penalty for this count, if I was to impose a penalty, it would be the ethics class on the previous count. So that's why I'm okay with this decision here.
If no one else, Ms. Nussbich, could you take the vote?
Certainly. Mr. Allen, Ms. Anglin,
Aye.
Mr. Colley,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Price,
Aye.
Ms. Reness,
Aye.
Ms. Snetter,
Aye.
Ms. Stiles,
Aye.
Ms. Stokes,
Aye.
and Mr. Stone.
Aye.
It's unanimous, Madam Chair.
Motion is adopted. Could you bring Mr. Smith back in the room, please?
Yes, bear with me 1 minute, please. Did we get Mr. Smuda back?
Yes, you did.
Yes.
Here we go.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, we'll move to the next item. Ms. Nussbich, will you introduce our guest for landscape architects?
Very happy to. We are privileged to have Mr. Matt Miller, who is the CEO of CLARB, with us today, and the president-elect, Mr. Chuck Smith, and they were available to join us in person to give us a CLARB update. So I guess, Mr. Miller, we'll turn it over to you first.
Thanks so much, Kate. I appreciate you being willing to have us join your board meeting. It's something that we're trying to do more of. One of the silver linings of COVID has been the ability to reach out and engage with licensure boards across the U.S. and Canada. For us, I personally been able to attend more than 20 some board meetings in the last few months without having to leave my home. So it's been one of the silver linings, and it's really been, for me, very helpful in learning the role. I've been with CLARB about 18 months. And so really what we're just trying to do is give you some insight into what we're working on, what we're doing, and see if you have any questions about, as the National Association for Landscape Architects on the regulatory side, if you have any questions for us. I'm going to turn it over to our president-elect, Chuck Smith. Chuck will be taking his term of office beginning right after our annual meeting in September. And I'll let Chuck give you a few updates on some of the work the board of directors is doing at CLARB, and then I'll share a few other items with you when he finishes up. So, Chuck.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And Kate, I would also like to thank you for giving us this opportunity to join your group today and your board. So thank you very much.
Welcome.
First of all, I wanted to bring up the fact that we will be having our annual meeting in September in Phoenix, and all of you are probably part of groups that have been beginning this transition out of COVID, and whether we should be meeting together in person or whether we should still continue to meet virtually. This will be our first meeting that we will begin this transition back to meeting in person. And so we're going to have this combination in-person and virtual meeting, that we will have a limited number of in-person registrants and attendees, and each jurisdiction will be able to have 2 members attend. So that's typically going to be the board executive. So Kate would be part of that if she's able to attend, as well as one other board member. We hope you'll be attending because our annual meeting is really designed to make us better functioning as boards. A lot of discussions make us better at what we do on the state level. And then secondly, it helps us improve our working relationship with our customers, who are our licensees and our future licensees or applicants. So a lot of sessions, really worthwhile sessions that get at those 2 points. We've also, as a multidisciplinary board, you may be interested in this, but we're going to have a specific session that's looking at updates from an incidental practice task force that ICOR has established. ICOR is the Inter-Organizational Council on Regulation that the architectural disciplines, engineering disciplines, landscape architectural disciplines are part of. And that group is looking at this overlap of practice that we all deal with together. And we'll be reporting on that. We're also looking at what's been going on with ARPL, which is the Alliance for Responsible Professional Licensing, of which, again, our various disciplines are part of, and looking at the key work that group is doing as we are all dealing with these threats to licensure that have been taking place around the country. I'll talk, there's also some other presentations during that meeting that I'm going to talk to briefly next regarding our strategic planning with CLARB 2.0 and how we are rethinking regulation. So particularly as we begin reconnecting in person, I hope you will take the opportunity to spend time with us in Phoenix in September, and look forward to seeing some of you when that occurs. So next, I'd like to give you a brief overview of what we call CLARB 2.0. In 2015, we began to intentionally build our foresight capacity. And through this, we have become more aware of big societal shifts and big issues that are impacting regulation and our professions. In 2020, our board, our staff, and our members began discussions to build the next iteration of what I call our strategic plan, but CLARB 2.0. And by the end of this year, we will have articulated an envisioned future that fulfills our governing intent. And it gives us measurable objectives as we try to track our progress in this plan. And then finally, it gives us a roadmap to guide our work. And this ultimately will give the board, the staff, and other key volunteers a guide as we go into the next few years of our work with CLARB. One of the specific things that we'll be doing is looking at more targeted membership recruitment and really trying to address needs that we have on the board and filling them with specific skill sets, which helps us to reach our goals more intentionally. So then the final topic I'd like to discuss has to do with what we call rethinking regulation. All of us are aware of the changing dynamics of regulatory reform, and we anticipate that licensure and regulation will continue to be scrutinized in each of our jurisdictions. We're all facing changing demographics, and we have a responsibility to ensure licensure requirements are defensible and that they're equitable for all. And we know also that advancements in technology have impacted practice and regulation. And then we've been dealing, and maybe you have, but certainly we've been dealing with customer preferences and expectations are changing because we live in this Amazon world where our candidates and licensees expect things to turn around quickly and efficiently and without delay. Whether we agree on all these things or whether we're experiencing all these things, they've been driving change for us, and we have to determine how best to respond to them. So we've broken this down into, our Rethink Regulation program has been broken into 4 projects that we are looking, where we are looking to address key areas of friction. First one, policy changes will take place that facilitate uniform standards for licensure. Secondly, process changes that eliminates the duplication of documentation. Thirdly, procedural changes will improve the time that it takes to get licensed. Again, back to this request from a lot of our applicants that about how long it's taking to become licensed and how long the processes take. And then finally, we're going to be looking at service enhancements that better assist candidates and licensees to move through this licensure path. And so specifically, I'd just like to cover one of these as I close my portion of our discussion, is to look at uniform standards for licensure. We've been looking have a focused look at uniform standards because we're going to be spending some time talking about this at the annual meeting, and we'll be coming back to your state and your board to talk about this issue of uniform standards. We've had some work groups that have been looking at the subject of uniform standards since 2019. And some key principles were established by that work group that the standard should consider alternative pathways to licensure. I think your state already has alternative pathways to just the standard education experience requirement. There should be consistent requirements across the various jurisdictions. It should facilitate mobility, as we have licensees that are working in multiple states and multiple jurisdictions and even multiple countries. And there should be defensible requirements that because of the way the legislative bodies look at all of us and the work we do and our laws. We've also more recently established a work group that met in May and produced a few recommendations regarding a model law and uniform standards. And right now, the recommended approach goes in this direction of prioritizing an accredited degree as the preferred path to licensure, but it also recognizes an alternative education paths, that there are alternative paths, and that will be changing more and more in the future, we see. And it provides for an education through experience path. This group meets again in July to refine these recommendations, and then this work will be presented to the CLARB members at the annual meeting in September. We'll be coming back to you after the annual meeting, asking that you include this topic on one of your future agendas looking at uniform standards. And that's all I've got with these subjects, and I'm going to turn it back over to Matt, but I'll ask specifically, first of all, if there are any questions regarding uniform standards or these other topics that I've talked about this morning.
I don't have any questions, but I am very glad to see that we're moving in that direction. And I'm a landscape architect.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I have a question. When you said defensible requirements, what specifically are you referring?
Well, I don't know your state as well. I'm in North Carolina, so I've been on my board for the last 12 years and just ended my term. So we had regularly been dealing with conversations with legislatures who were questioning, for example, the amount of experience someone had. Could we defend the specific amount of experience that was in our law? Why is it so much, or why is it so little? You're probably getting these same kind of questions. And so with uniform standards, what we're able to look at is across the board. We've looked specifically, as an example, at experience. And why is an experience requirement a certain number of years? Why is it a certain amount of experience if you've been under a landscape architect or under an engineer or under an architect? Should it vary depending on those kind of backgrounds? And so since we're getting such scrutiny around the country and licensure has been challenged in so many ways, we've been trying to come to give data and have research that's been the basis of these kind of answers for them, rather than just it's always the way we've been doing it. So I hope that helps, but that's generally why we've been going in this direction.
Anything else from Clark?
Sure, yes, thank you. Chuck, one thing I would add is the I-Corps group that you mentioned, the Coalition of Design Professionals. That includes the engineers, architects, and interior designers and landscape architects. I just wanted to make sure I didn't leave out the interior design.
Oh, I'm sorry. I left it out, yeah.
Because they have been a very strong ally of the design profession. So I just wanted to make sure we included them. I'll just share a few other things, and Chuck, you did an outstanding job on covering all of that. So I don't have anything to add to your piece. A couple of things for our exam, I'd like to just bring you up to speed on. The landscape architect registration exam, the LARE, is administered in 3 different administration windows. We have actually, back in December, we moved 2 of the sections optionally to online proctoring. In the last 2 administrations, actually over 40% of the candidates that were taking those 2 sections 1 and 2, were opting to do so through an online proctor model. We've seen no statistically significant differences in pass rates or anchor item performance between bricks and mortar exams and those exams that were taken at an office or at home, proctored online. And so the performance of the exam is pretty much the same. We have not seen any candidate impropriety, and we plan to continue moving with the LARE, moving all 4 sections to optional remote or online proctoring. For us, this is actually solves 2 issues. One is a capacity issue with the testing centers. Often we found out the hard way through COVID, as you reduce capacity in the test centers, there are a lot fewer appointments for people to test. But also we see it as an access issue. There are many candidates, exam candidates in the country that do not have access to a test center within 50 miles of where they're residing. And for us, the access to taking the exam, not having to drive 3 hours in a car, 3 hours back to take an exam, we felt was critical. So the performance on the LARE itself has been doing very well. Our volumes in terms of test takers have actually, if I'm comparing back to 2019 numbers, which are pre-COVID, we are now this year 4% higher in terms of exam takers in 2020 and our fiscal year 2021 than we were in 2019. So we're seeing a very strong return to exam candidates, and we're actually seeing an increase in applications for what we call transmittals, which are really reflective of applications for reciprocity among states. So there's some good indications there that we're normalizing with where we were. And as I referenced it, during COVID, we were down about 14% in terms of exam candidates taking the test. So we're happy about that. Something else that CLARB has been working very diligently on for the past 5 years are efforts around diversity, equity, and inclusion. We actually, this last board meeting, codified principles around diversity, equity, inclusion, and our board has approved several action plans for us to focus on in the short term, knowing that diversity, equity, and inclusion is a long-term investment. In the short term, we're going to be investing very specifically in recruiting diverse talent for our board of directors and other volunteer leadership positions within CLARB. We revised our bylaws in 2019 to allow for basically non-members of CLARB to participate on the CLARB board of directors. This year, we have our first non-landscape architect serving on our board of directors. And for the first time, our nominee pool was 20% racially diverse. It's not where we want to be, but that's about 4 times higher than it has been in the past. We will continue to do active recruiting and making people aware of the opportunity to serve in CLARB leadership. The other piece of our diversity, equity, inclusion activities that we'll be focusing on next year, in the next year or 2, will be what we're calling education and learning, and moving beyond explaining and justifying why diversity, equity, inclusion is important, but really talking about tools and tactics that not just you, but others can use to help increase diversity, either on local licensing boards and within the licensure process itself. And we'll also be taking initiatives to evaluate and see where there might be bias in the licensure process and trying to mitigate any bias that might exist. So we're working on that pretty heavily. And the last piece that I would bring up is that we have our nominees for our elected positions for CLARB, which each board will be casting a vote on for this year, president-elect and treasurer. I believe that information went out to the boards yesterday. And so I believe you'll have some time to make a decision on which candidate or candidates you'll be choosing for CLARB leadership for the 2022 year. So with that, I will pause and see if there are any questions about what I shared or anything in general about CLARB.
Not a question, but hi, Matt and Chuck. I'm Frank Hancock. I'm the other landscape architect on the board. Thank you so much for that update, and thank you for all of the work you guys are doing and have done throughout COVID. It's really great to hear about everything you have going on. So thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
Thanks, Frank.
Well, Chuck and Matt, I really appreciate you taking the time out to join us today. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if your schedule permits, but I certainly understand if it does not. Excited to see that meetings are starting to move forward, whether it be hybrid or all in person, but we're getting there. Ann Stokes will be our voting delegate at the annual meeting. And just two things I want to touch on. Everything that's sent goes to all the board members, and I know some have more time than others, but they did have the mid-year update webcast April 7th, and they covered the LRE at that webcast, and also the Rethink regulations, and they talked about the uniform application that Chuck also mentioned. And they did have on June 10th at 3 a uniform standard update webcast, which I got to participate in. But I send that information to the board, and then always they know that if they don't catch it then, most everything is recorded. They can go back and look at their leisure as time permits. But really do appreciate you both taking the time to be here with us today, and hope that you have a safe and happy summer.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. Okay, one more thing I forgot is if you have 2 participants from Virginia in the annual meeting, anyone else from the board can participate virtually for no cost. There's no registration fees. So we call it optimal participation. So anyone that wanted to pop in and out of the virtual annual meeting as a remote participant could do that as well if you're interested. So especially our the 2 landscape architects we have would love to be able to have them engage in some way in our annual meeting. So I wanted to share that will be available for, if you have 2 registrants, anybody on the board.
Thank you very much. That's very generous. And knowing my board, there will be some that will take advantage of that to see what else CLARB has going on. So thank you. Unless Ms. Stokes or Mr. Hancock have anything else for the landscape architect update, Madam Chair, I think we're ready to move on to engineers.
Right. Would you please provide the, oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just saying that I don't have anything.
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Thank you, professional engineers, Ms. Nospich.
Yes, we do have a couple action items from NCEES, and I think if you go to page 273 of your agenda, this is the resolution of cooperation to facilitate interstate licensure for professional engineers and professional surveyors. NCEES is looking for states to adopt this, knowing that it might not be completely feasible or possible with our current regulations or statutes, that are looking at this as a sort of stepping stone, if you will, to get where they need to be in the future. So we have discussed this previously, but I believe, offered support last December, but they are officially now going out and asking all the boards if they would review this and approve it. So if, and again, it's not tying our hands that we have to follow anything in the resolution, but they're just hoping that the boards will adopt the resolution. And I'm sorry, it starts on page 277, I believe.
So Kate, there's no changes from when we talked about in December, is there?
I don't think many. I think they might have tweaked some of the language, but I don't think the substance of it changed.
And it does not say that we were going to do everything we can to follow model law. It just talks generically about the model law, right?
Correct. It's not binding us in any way. It's
Yeah.
just asking for state support.
On page 273, the last paragraph before the signature block says that it's a non-binding resolution of cooperation.
And as all of you know, especially the engineers and surveyors with NCEES having the 2 professions under the same organization, it's like herding cats. And so just trying to get everybody to agree that this is okay. We might not follow it, but it's okay. So this is an actionable item before the board today.
So I will make a motion, I guess, Kate, that we're going to ask you as a representative or the executive director of the board to sign this for the board and send it back to NCWS.
I will second.
Is there any more discussion?
Ms. Nesbitt, can you take a vote?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Allen? Ms. Anglin?
Aye.
Mr. Cawley?
Aye.
Mr. Hancock?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Ms. Reness?
Aye.
Ms. Snetter?
Aye.
Ms. Stiles?
Aye.
Ms. Stokes?
Aye.
Mr. Stone?
Aye.
And Mr. Zmuda?
Aye.
Unanimously passes, Madam Chair.
Adapted to accept the recommendations from NCESS. So we'll move on to the land surveys. Ms. Nesbitt, could you give us an update?
Well, we're still on PEs, but NCE affects both
Yeah.
PEs and land surveyors. The second
Okay.
item is the memo for the Washington Accord brief. And again, this is something that's been around quite a while. I think piece 78 is where it starts on your electronic agenda.
Yeah.
So it goes on to explain what it is, what it does. And at the bottom of 278, you see the current signatories, Korea, Russia, Malaysia, China, and it goes on into the next page.
Is this just for information, or is this an
Yeah.
I think this is to explain it to us. I think we're going to see more of this at the annual meeting. And I know there's been concerns in the past about we didn't accept the Washington Accord. So, you know, they're ending this with the Washington Accord is a worthwhile step towards facilitating international mobility. And that's a very hot topic with all of the professions right now. So I think this is just giving you the background, the foundation of where we are now.
So Kate, when you say we didn't accept, is we Virginia or is we NCES?
We Virginia.
Okay.
We did it one time and then we did not when they were saying they weren't really, you know, it wasn't up to standards. There were states that were and states that weren't, and there still are. So there's still a mixture, but our next meeting will be after the annual meeting. So we can certainly have this on as an update to see where we are.
So some states would take it as ABET accredited and other states wouldn't take it as ABET accredited, the program?
They would just accept it.
Okay.
Yeah. Kate, I also see that they're giving information on this only. They're giving updates on the changes to the exam, when you can take it and when you cannot. And also when the 2021 exam, you know, how it's going to go into effect and when. So I would look at this as a lot of information for everyone rather than something to take a motion on.
Madam Chair, that's a separate item. The Washington Accord is separate from the changes to the exam. That's item 3 on the NCES update. So the Washington Accord is for your information. That's laying the foundation right now.
Okay,
the next item.
Okay, I was wondering because it fell right below the Washington Accord, so it seemed as though
It's all in. Yes, all the NCES stuff is in the one document. But there are some changes to the exam. Thank you for that nice segue into the next topic, the exam. Just to let you know, they're offering the exam. It's going to be 1021 and 1022. 1021 civil construction, civil transportation, civil water.
For Dominion Indoor Finder, so
I'm sorry, I was hearing feedback. So the tests that are being offered October 21 are the civil construction, transportation, water resources, and environmental, and then the SE vertical force bridges and vertical force buildings. And of course, the structural exam is still 2 days. So on the second day, in addition to the structural lateral forces for bridges and buildings, they're going to also have control systems, civil geotechnical, civil structural, and metallurgical and materials. And that is just informational, but those are the exams that are going to be offered in the fall, October 21 and 22. And before we leave the PE section, I just wanted to congratulate George Mason University. They were one of 7 $10,000 recipients from the NCEES Engineering Educators Award. So it's always nice to see a Virginia school win one of NCES's awards. Also, the zone meetings were held this spring. The annual meeting will be August 19 through 20, and we are seeking approval for Ms. Anglin, Mr. Doyle, and Mr. Zamuda to attend that meeting. Registration is opening this month, and they are also live streaming for those who can't participate. I don't have all the particulars yet, but I assume it would probably be like CLARB, that if you were virtual, there wouldn't be a cost. I know there's not a cost for NCARB. So I think everybody's trying to figure out how to do it to include the most people, but keep people safe and realize some people still have travel restrictions or don't feel comfortable traveling that far. So unless my PE board members had any other comments, or the LS board members related to anything NCEES. If you'd like me to move on, Madam Chair, to land surveyors.
Yes, please.
Just to let you know, June 25th, Virginia Association of Surveyors is offering a summer series from 8 to 5, and it's worth 8 hours of PhD. And VAS had contacted the governor's office, and Governor Northam issued a proclamation for Surveyors Week, which was back March 21st through 27th, which was after our last meeting. And that is all the information I have for surveyors, unless my land surveyor board members have anything else they would like to add.
Vicky does.
Thank you. I was listening to them go over the proposed changes, and one of the proposed changes that they will be discussing at the zone meeting is to eliminate field experience requirement from the model law section. And I'm not comfortable with that. I believe Doyle might have also been on that meeting. Mike, I don't know if you were there, if any of you heard that and picked up on that. So as a board, do we need to develop a position on that before the zone meeting?
They have not sent the resolutions out yet. We don't usually get them before the end of July, early August, depending on when their meeting is. So I wouldn't expect those before July, Vicki, and we'll share those. What I did with the architects, NCARB had 7 motions. I participated on, they had resolution. I'm getting ahead of myself. That's the next report, but they had resolution webinars, and I know some of the architects were also on those calls. So I shared, I told them normal times we would address this at a meeting or have a separate meeting, but sent out the information, asked them for if they agreed with the resolutions, and then our delegate, which is Christine, will vote on those Saturday based on our email discussions through me. Ours were pretty straightforward. NCES's sometimes are a little more involved.
So this would be interesting to note that NCES is going an opposite way that CLARB is going, where CLARB is trying to add alternative pathways to licensure. NCES seems to be trying to eliminate field experience and non-degreed pathways to licensure. So just an interesting juxtaposition there that stepped out to me when Clark was speaking earlier.
Generally, with most groups, it seems like they're looking for alternate pathways, not trying to be more restrictive, but be more inclusive.
I'll just add that I did not pick up on that in the information, and I'm glad that Vicki did. That's why we need a lot of people participating. I would like to correct that the zone meeting has already been held, so the next opportunity, as Kate mentioned, would be to see what they come out as a resolution, and then we'll have to, as a section and board, discuss it, come up with a position on it, and act at the annual meeting.
Okay. If there's everything for the land surveyors, any more comments on that? If not, we'll move on. Ms. Nosfitz for the update.
I do have one question for Vicki. So Vicki and Doyle, and also Mike. So, you know, for the engineers, we have certain requirements before you can sit for the exam. And I'm assuming that for land surveyors, you have the same thing. So even though NCWS may adopt something that's in model law, you know, we don't adopt model law in Virginia for the engineers. I'm assuming you don't for the land surveyors. Can you not continue to have the requirement for field experience in Virginia?
Mr. Stone, I'll speak to that. The thing that jumps out at me is that the greatest percentage of our new applicants seems to be coming from licensure by comity. So if we're not sure, if they change model law and 10 other states adopt it per se, then we get applicants from those 10 states and they have zero field experience. There's no way for us to know it, because by the time that it would percolate into Virginia, that sort of early information that would disclose their field experience will no longer be on their applications. So it's complicated.
That's a good point.
Okay. We'll move on to the architects. Ms. Nosfitz, update.
Thank you. NCARB is doing a similar thing like CLARB suggested. They're going to have a hybrid meeting. Their meeting is in California. All three architect members and myself, I'm pleased to say, will be participating virtually. As I mentioned, there's 7 resolutions, and kudos to the architects because the voting is Saturday afternoon. So we will be doing that on Saturday. They offered 2 resolution webinars, which I found very helpful. I know some of the board members also participated in that, and I used that sort of as the bouncing board to get us where we needed to be with the resolutions. Also, for the upcoming year, Ms. Snetter, our chair, was assigned as the chair for the ARE 5.0 Forms Assembly Committee. So I wanted to congratulate her on that. And I have been asked to serve on the Diversity Collaborative Task Force. So I'm very excited about that opportunity. ARE, I mentioned previously, is transitioning from Prometric to PSI. They had initially thought that would happen right like about now, and it's been pushed back to next year, and they're thinking the first testing with PSI will be February 1st. They've added another additional 3-month rolling clock extension because of the pandemic to all scores valid since March 1st. You know, they drop off after 5 years. So they have received a total, anybody since March 1st with scores has received a total of an additional 18 months because they've extended it a couple times with this last 3-month extension. It's now a total of 18 months they've received. Candidates don't need to take any action for that to occur. Regional Summit was in March. There were over 238 delegates in 54 jurisdictions. I share all of this with you. I kind of just tease out the biggest highlights to do at the board meeting, but you all get all this information. But just things that I really think are noteworthy, especially like the top blog post where women in architecture share their challenges and inspiration, and our very own chair, Christine Snetter, was one of the featured women in that blog post. So congratulations again. And NCARB just recently offered its first event entirely in Spanish in April, and so I thought that was also pretty interesting. And that's all I have, unless the architect board members have anything else they wanted to share at this time.
Yeah, I was just listening to the discussion on the examination, which was very interesting because I'm also appointed to as chair of the subcommittee, examination subcommittee for NCARB. So there have been discussions, the same type of discussions, which is very, very good to see how the other disciplines, the other engineering disciplines are thinking right now. It seems as though it's moving in the same direction. The question that Vicki had also about the experience, that's been discussed as well. So I guess it's striking the balance with each profession right now and trying to encourage people and have more of an alternative path and not be very restrictive, more flexibility. But then you don't want to go to the point where you're not getting true engineers or architects because of the lack of experience, and especially when you're thinking about the public safety. So that's all for me right now. Anyone else? If not, we'll move to updates for the certified interior designers.
The last call for board member nominations was April 23rd. Matt Barish was joined as the Government Affairs and Advocacy Manager recently to the headquarters at CIDQ. And April 30th, they offered an educator and CIDQ exam partnering for professionalism webinar. So that was really all I had for CIDQ. I don't know. Cameron, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, not at this time.
So the draft meeting schedule, I think, okay, yeah, 2020, is it for 2021, 22?
This is all 2022, February 9, May 11, August 10, and November 15th.
Okay.
Can we have a motion to approve those dates?
I move to approve.
Is there
I'll
a second?
I second.
Discussion?
Will they be in person-to-person meetings? Do we know yet?
I am hopeful this is our last virtual meeting, but we will see. Our next meeting is scheduled for September 8th. So we'll see where we are. I'll pull the board members and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other discussion? If not, Ms. Nelswich, could you call the vote?
Certainly. Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Anglin?
Aye.
Mr. Cawley?
Aye.
Mr. Hancock?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Ms. Reness?
Aye.
Ms. Snetter?
Aye.
Ms. Stiles?
Aye.
Ms. Stokes?
Aye.
Mr. Stone?
Aye.
And Mr. Smuda?
Aye.
Unanimously passes, Madam Chair.
It's adopted. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda is election of chair and vice chair. Ms. Nussbush?
So our board rotation policy, the vice chair typically assumes the position of the chair, and then a board member from the next profession is elected as the vice chair. And so we'll do these as two separate motions. So I would like to open the floor for nominations for chair. Our current vice chair is Ms. Ann Stokes.
I move that Ann Stokes be nominated as next year's chair.
May I second?
Are there any other nominations from the floor? Is there any discussion? Ms. Stokes, do you accept the nomination?
I do. Thank you.
May I do roll, Madam Chair?
Yes, I thought you were going to just move ahead.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Anglin?
Aye.
Mr. Colley?
Aye.
Mr. Hancock?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Ms. Reness?
Aye.
Ms. Snetter?
Aye.
Ms. Stiles?
Aye.
Ms. Stokes?
Aye.
Mr. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Zmuda?
Aye.
Congratulations, Ms. Stokes. I look forward to working with you this coming year.
Congratulations. The motion is adopted. The professional engineers are the next profession in the rotation. The floor is open for nominations.
Madam Chair, I nominate Chris Stone, PE, to serve in the position as vice chair.
I second.
Okay, are there any motions from the floor? Okay, well, seeing none, nominations are closed. Ms. Nussbush, you call the vote?
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Anglin?
Aye.
Mr. Colley?
Aye.
Mr. Hancock?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Ms. Reness?
Aye.
Ms. Snetter?
Aye.
Ms. Stiles?
Aye.
Ms. Stokes?
Aye.
Mr. Stone?
Aye.
And Mr. Zmuda?
Aye.
Adopted. Congratulations. Next on the agenda is regulatory update. Ms. Nussbush, will you update us on our proposed regulatory changes?
I would be most happy to. So our regulations that have been in process have had a little movement recently. They're in the final stage and they're on the governor's desk. They've been there for several weeks. There's no time limit for when they have to come out of there, but when they do, we have 14 days to file with the registrar's office, and there will be one more public comment. And so we're getting close. So we hadn't talked about it in a while, and I just wanted to share that information with you. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is petition for rulemaking of a particular regulation. This request was reviewed at our March 16 board meeting, and the staff was directed to file a petition for a 30-day public comment period and have the board consider the petition in any public comments at its June 22nd meeting. There were no public comments submitted in regards to this petition. After considering the petition and based on the lack of public comment, is there a motion regarding this petition at this time?
I move that we accept the petition.
Well, wait, I'm
Is there a
sorry.
second?
Wait, excuse me. Go ahead.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion?
So this just changes it from 130 days to 75 days. Is that not correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
may, so we had one individual ask for this change, ask for file a petition. We didn't receive one comment on it, not even from the person that requested it. Taking that down to 75 days really shortens the time that board members have for review. And we don't stop processing. We process all the way up until the absolute deadline, past the deadline that they are due to us. Taking that 130 days down to 75 days, if somebody needs to go back out and get additional experience submitted or rewritten from their first review, they're not going to have an opportunity to do that. My humble recommendation would be that we don't approve the petition and change this for one person. Also, in the last 5 years, this has happened one time. So I don't know if we want to change our regulations for that. And I see Ms. Brosvaughn is.
Yes, Madam Chair, if I may, one other item for the board's consideration would be that the petitioner made the request based on timing that involved this year's transcripts in December and when the spring 2022 exam would be administered. And I would remind the board that its general review action initiated several years ago is still under consideration. If the board adopts this petition request and initiates a notice of intended regulatory action, it will be several years before it takes effect, and this petitioner's situation will not be affected. I just want to point that out.
And just to add one other thing, and I know the board members will know that they have seen this, we have sometimes sent information to be reviewed knowing that we were going to get the degree verification at a later time to submit to you if we don't have it at the time that you review the initial package. So, but you have on the table now a vote to approve this petition.
So one more question. Is there anything in the regulations, and I just don't remember, that are sitting on the governor's desk that address this?
I honestly can't tell you that without going and pulling and I don't have them in here with me. I don't know that we changed that because as I said, it's affected one person in 5 years, but we take things up to the last minute. You're taking that time down. It will be a disservice to anybody that needs a second review. They're not going to make the cut because there's not that extra time built in. And it's going to be, the onus is going to be on the board members to push those through. We don't just stop at 130 days. In fact, our licensing specialist that handles PE said he was doing them as close as 30 days out. So that gives us, the 130 days gives us wiggle room, but we don't stop. We keep processing up until the very end.
Kate, does NCES
Mr. Stone, I can answer that question. This particular provision of that regulation is not amended in your final regulatory action under consideration at the governor's level right now.
Okay, so if we don't accept this petition, we're still at the 130 days in the regulations that are sitting on the governor's desk? Okay, thank you.
That is correct.
Okay.
And so is there any notification to NCES as far as taking the exams is there a deadline there?
We have, yes, there's a deadline. We have an internal deadline, and then we have a deadline that is 3 p.m. on a specific day. It's locked down and there's no wiggle room after that. But even though they have this internal deadline here, we're working up till that 3 o'clock deadline on the specific day with NCES.
Sure, I've had.
You've gotten things at 1 o'clock on the day of the 3 o'clock deadline.
Right.
Yeah, so you all know, we don't just stop working. It's like, oh, it's 130 days, we're done. We, as I'm sure my overworked PE board members will tell you, we go to the last minute and we try very hard to be accommodating to anybody that, you know, if they went out and we asked for additional information or they have trouble getting a reference, you know, we do our darndest to make sure nobody has to wait if they don't have to.
And going forward, I guess does this almost become a moot point because PE exams will be computer based and can be taken at any time?
They'll moot to some degree, that we're not pushed with these deadlines. That the work will be spread out throughout the year instead of having this, everything coming at us. Like now we're working for the fall deadline for the October exam.
Yeah, but
So-
Mr. Kelly, if you go back and look at the NCWS section in the agenda, there is a deadline date for the computer-based testing. So you can't just sign up at the very last minute. There is a cutoff.
Oh, I thought that at least some of the exams were going to be taken at any point and not just at the October and April timeframe.
That's more the fundamentals, not the PE.
Gotcha.
They're working all towards computer-based testing. Some will still only be offered once a year. Some of the bigger ones, there'll be windows, but we're working there. I think NCES in the next couple of years will have everything computer-based, and it seems as things have become computer-based, there's more flexibility in how they're offered instead of this, if you miss October, you're stuck until the next April kind of thing.
Yeah, and to Ms. Vaughn's point, so if we approve this today, it doesn't become effective in our regulations until the next time we doesn't really become effective. It's our intention to modify our regulations the next time it goes through the cycle, which will be anywhere from 5 years to a decade from now.
Well,
the best case scenario would be 2 years.
Right.
But again, since the board would allow this particular petitioner to register for the exam contingent upon receipt of degree verification, the particular scenario outlined by this petitioner, this would be a problem in search of a solution.
Gotcha. I mean, I appreciate the opportunity to consider the petitioner, but I'll be voting against the proposal.
So, Madam Chair, if it's appropriate, I can amend my motion since I made the motion to not accept the petitioner's request.
Accepted. You can restate your motion.
The motion might be to take no action on the petitioner's request.
Okay. I'll amend my amendment that we will take no action.
Okay, could you restate your amendment?
My motion is to take no action on the petitioner's request.
Is there a second?
Ms. Stokes was the original seconder.
I'll second the amendment to the amendment. No action on the petitioner's request.
And I'll amend my statement that I will now vote for
it. Okay. Seeing as though have we had all the discussions yet? If we have, Ms. Nusswich, could you take the vote, please?
Gladly. Mr. Allen.
Aye.
Ms. Anglin.
Aye.
Mr. Coley.
Aye.
Mr. Hancock.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Ms. Price.
Yes.
Ms. Reness.
Aye.
Ms. Snetter.
Yes.
Ms. Stiles.
Yes.
Ms. Stokes.
Aye.
Mr. Stone.
Aye.
Mr. Zmuda.
Aye.
Thank you. It's unanimous, Madam Chair.
It's adopted. The motion is adopted. We will not take any action on this petition. Excuse me. The next item on the agenda is business agreement updates.
And we have no business agreements to share with the board at this time.
So, Madam Chair, I do have one comment that I'd like to make as it pertains to business agreements. And maybe it's more appropriate to take it up under new business, although it's really not actionable. So, Kate, the state right now has a work group that's working on public procurement. And it's what they're trying to do is increase percentage of small women and minority-owned businesses in their participation in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And one of the things that that I discovered, because I've been listening in on these meetings, is that, and for years I've used, there's a database that's put out by the Department of Small Business Supplier to Diversity, and it includes professional services, architects, engineers, certified interior designers, landscape architects. If I missed anybody, I apologize. Anyway, one of the things that I discovered was that when you and I looked at architects as an example. There's 198 architectural firms that are on that list. And when you check those firms, and I only checked went through the A's, 40% of the firms that were on that list were not registered with the board. And it's a little, and I brought it up. I think it's a violation. I don't know if those firms are actually working in the Commonwealth, but they're on that list as providing professional services in Virginia, but they're not registered with the board. And that was a shocking percentage to me. And so I know that's probably not the purview of the board, but I just want to bring it up in terms of these business agreements. I'm not even sure that these entities are registered with the SEC in Virginia. And it's very, very concerning.
To provide services or offer services, you do need to be registered in Virginia. So, and maybe I can talk to you, Chris, offline and get more information about this. But yeah, they would have to have an SEC number and be registered if they are providing services in Virginia.
Yeah, well, like I said, I checked the A's and I checked it against, the DPOR database, and they were not registered with the board.
Well, and since there are no agreements before the board, something that has been on my mind for a while, the business agreements, basically we have them just sign something that says they're on probation for a year and they're going to follow the rules. Well, everybody is supposed to follow the rules. We seem to come down, sanctions are much harder on individuals, and businesses just get a
pass
document that says, yes, I did this and I'm going to be on probation and follow the rules for a year. So there seems to me, there's disparity between how we treat the businesses and how we treat the individual. And then if that individual was the responsible charge for that particular business, he's getting sanctions, and the businesses, like, to use your words, Mr. Stone, it's not quite a pass, but it really, some of these other states, and from when we look at these, they're getting fined and have more serious sanctions than just probation. And yes, I'll follow the rules, and if I don't follow the rules, my probation can be revoked. But everybody's expected to follow the regulations. So, and that might be something that we want to look at further, but it was a good time to bring it up because we don't have any business agreements on the agenda.
So Jennifer Mayton is the acting director for the Department of Small Business Supplier Diversity. I don't know if it's appropriate, but you might want to reach out to her because I brought it to her attention, and they basically said they did not monitor the list for if a business was actually qualified to do the work. And I just don't know how they can just make that blanket statement that there ought to, in the application process to get certified as a small women and minority owned business in Virginia, and most of them are out of state, they should at least ask the question, are you registered with the board to provide professional services within the Commonwealth? And in my view, they've abdicated that responsibility.
Well, thank you for sharing this with us.
This goes back to the previous, case that we had where the individual was offering land surveying services and wasn't registered with the board. It's the same thing, so.
I will reach out to her and I will report back to the board at our September meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a great point. And the process to become a SWAM certified company is so onerous anyway, in my opinion, that adding one more question on there shouldn't be that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get into, what if they say no? Are you going to still put them on the list or tell them they can't be on the list? But we'll see what we can find out. But thank you for bringing that to our attention, Mr. Stone.
Okay. We'll move on to the CE waiver updates.
We did not have any requests for CE waivers, Madam Chair.
You have a list of licensed and certified population for informational purposes only. If you all can just, I think it's on page 287. If you want to say anything about that, Ms. Nussfish.
The financial statements are also, that's just informational. We had filed for a fee increase. That's still in the beginning stages. That's not moved anywhere since we filed that last year. Did we lose your voice, Christine? I can't hear
No,
you.
I asked
You
whether
are.
there was any other business for discussion.
I would just like to take a moment to thank the board. I know it's a little challenging to do the board meetings this way, and I just really appreciate your perseverance and your dedication as we work through it. So I just thank you all and hope you all have a good summer.
Conflict of interest forms, I believe, will be sent via email to the board. And if there isn't anything else, besides, this is my last sitting as chair of this board, and might be my last meeting as well, but not sure as yet. Okay, go ahead.
I was just, if I can piggyback off that, not only her last meeting as chair, but Christine, I cannot believe how fast 8 years goes. Christine is finishing her second term. We haven't heard anything about a replacement, so you may or may not see Christine in September, but just in case, she, as a board member, but if she's not as a board member, hopefully she'll be coming to receive a resolution, and if she is a board member, we'll just take her as long as they let us keep her. But it's been a pleasure, Christine, and appreciate the 8 years you've given us, and appreciate your year as chair. So, and Christine has also, she's going to be a presiding officer along with Bob Boynton. And so when we have architect cases, what that does is allow the sitting architect board members to stay in the room and be part of the discussion. So excited about that, and very grateful that Christine as well as Bob were willing to do that so that all the architects could be in the room for discussions regarding architect cases. So Christine, thank you. And maybe we'll see you one way or another in September, either sitting at the board or getting a resolution, right?
That's right. It's been a pleasure. Sorry I didn't get to see you face to face the past year, but it's worked out. So you all have a good summer as well. And look forward to seeing you next time.
So I'd like to thank Christine for her service, and I'll make a motion for adjournment.
Actually, we don't need a motion. We can just avoid the roll call. Chair can just call it. We're adjourning at 11:48, Christine?
Yes, that's what the time says. We're adjourned right now. Thank you.
Thank you all. Stay well and safe.
Thank you.
Say,
Thanks,
Kate,
Christine.
Kate, when's lunch showing up?
I don't know. Listen for your Uber DoorDash bell. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Be safe.
Where you at? Okay. Okay, what do you want to, where do you want me to meet you? Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, 9960 Mayland Drive.